Hello and welcome to a very special and our last Corn Nation Overreaction Revisited from the 2023 season. I'm your host, Greg McHugh. There's my good friend, fellow Husker fan, a longtime broadcast buddy, Haas Reuter, and we're joined by a guest for the first time in the series in this entire run of the Overreaction Revisited podcast. We have a guest, and not just any guest. This guest comes to us by request from this guy here. Said, can you make it happen? I want Nate McHugh on this show. Nate is one of many tremendous contributors over at cornnation.com. He's also a hell of a guy, and I'm damn glad to know him. So, Nate, how are you, sir? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I do have to admit I'm somewhat nervous that I was requested, and then last week I said I couldn't make it one of the days, so I said, go ahead, guys, go ahead and do it. And you're like, no, we can't do this unless you're a part of it. And I'm like, yep. Oh, crap. So I don't know what to expect, and I guess we'll see what happens.
Well, the co-host of this tremendous show, as I mentioned, Haas Reuter. Haas, this was your request. I felt like Santa Claus. And you sat on my knee and said, "Can I get Nate McHugh in early August on a podcast?" And I see what I can do. Have you been good? Did you do all your chores this year? So first of all, you guys have had a hell of a week because I put a little short out there on YouTube. We were supposed to record this a week ago, but Eastern Nebraska got slammed by some storms. You both were without power at your homes for various intervals. Haas, you said that you didn't get power back until Monday night. So I guess, First of all, besides no power, any other damage to the old home there, Haas? Everything good except having to replace some groceries?
Being a renter, it's other people's problems, to fix stuff when it breaks. But I lost about $200 in groceries from a thawed-out freezer. So I had to replenish that tonight. And then other than that, it was just mainly just the inconvenience of my life kind of being disrupted for a period of a few days. Thankfully, my parents live about 6-10 minutes north of where I do. So I just, was a refugee over there for a few days. But at the end of the day, I was happy to go back to my own domicile. But no, everything's good except for when I stopped in here on Saturday, the thermostat read 90 when I walked in the door. And that is not a feeling I ever want to relive in my life.
Nate, I know based on your full-time work and then your side job, so to speak, you were kept pretty busy last week when it all happened. I don't know if I'm allowed at liberty to say what you do in your community and how involved you are, but I know you said you were out on a fire call, so you were kept busy and your family was displaced for a little while. But everything okay there at the McHugh home?
Yeah, there was a fire call. And we got mutual aided originally it was to Greenwood, but we actually never left the fire station. So, which when we had the bay doors open, looking at the wind, I was like, I don't know if we should be driving anywhere with these fire trucks, some of them tankers with, where the center of gravity is going to be much higher. And, and so the dispatcher actually came on and said, we're going to keep everybody at home. And so we ended up not having to go out. And then
to heck with that person's burning house, right?
No, sometimes when you get these storms, the automatic alarms will go off, and then it's like an automatic call, right? And so, but there's an accident on the interstate, but that was not a part of us, our area. So, and among other things. So,
right.
But I got home and my neighbor to the west, her trampoline somehow flew over that, because I'm not going to explain how it's all set up, but flew over her house or somehow got through a crevice like this across the street in my other neighbor's yard. So that's what I came home to. But other than that, I think we got pretty lucky. So I'm not going to complain too much. When I heard that some in Omaha it might be 7 or 8 days, I told my wife, if that was us, I'd probably be saying, let's go to vacation. I don't even care. Let's go to, I don't know. So, like, we just got back from South Dakota. Let's go to that hotel until we get power back,
Yeah.
Because I have 4 kids, and when our water wasn't working either. But I was just like, oh my goodness. So, like I said, we got lucky. The power's only out for like 12 hours. So.
And then I want to point out is the nature of this episode, what we're going to talk about. You willingly tormented yourself because you went back on YouTube and watched Big Ten in 60, the Nebraska-Iowa game from last November that we're going to subsequently talk about tonight. So it's been a rough week for you, man.
I am somewhat surprised by how pissed off I am right now.
Now, hold on. The entire point of this Overreaction Revisited series is we do it.
Catharsis.
Yeah, we're emotionally detached.
There was a game earlier this year. I think it was the Michigan State East Lansing trip all over again, where I got super fired up about how shitty of a town East Lansing is. So it was not cathartic at that point. So no, you're in good company here, Nate.
Oh, okay.
Well, let's get into it. I think now's as good of a time as any. Lincoln, Nebraska Memorial Stadium was the site of the game on November 24th, 2023. 86,183 butts in the seats to watch Nebraska at 5-6, trying to get to bowl eligibility against Iowa, who entered the game at 9-2. This one was kind of I don't know if you want to call it the stereotypical approach. It was that Nebraska-Iowa slugfest, not in the high-scoring capacity, but just, you have two teams that are fighting for an awful lot. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Haas, but Iowa was fighting for a chance to go to Indianapolis, or they probably needed a few other things to fall into place. Am I wrong on that?
I think they already had their berth for Indianapolis locked up, but we were definitely fighting for our postseason lives.
And Iowa, being any good rival, was trying to play the role of spoiler. Got through the first quarter scoreless. Iowa was up 10-7 at half. Nebraska tied it up in the third quarter, and it was an almost scoreless fourth frame until a damn walk-off field goal, 38-yard field goal. Let's get into this hellhole that was Nebraska-Iowa 2023. Haas, where do you want to start, my friend?
Well, you know what? Let's just start with quarterback play. It's game 2 that Chuba. I'm still not sure how it's pronounced.
I don't know.
Roll with either one. Second game that he started in a row. And this was a game where his running ability that we saw against Wisconsin was kind of negated. And a large part of that was the way that Iowa chose to defend us. They were playing out of their 4-2-5 nickel package. And they played a lot of zone coverage against us. So they were just able to get pressure with 4 and then blanket 7 defenders into coverage. And they kind of mixed in some zone pressures as well. We'll get to that last fateful interception was an example of a zone pressure that they ran. But it was a game where the lid was on the offense. It was really hard to push it downfield with the exception of Jalen Lloyd getting open on a post route where the defender that's supposed to carry him up to the safety couldn't keep up, and then the safety kind of bit forward on a hitch route underneath to kind of bait him to come up to get the post behind him. And so other than that, it was just kind of a war of attrition, for lack of a better term, in this game. Both teams just kind of kept chipping away. Iowa, evidently, they were able to chip just a little bit longer than we were, especially on that missed run fit by Phelan Sanford that gave, I think it was Daniels, the opportunity to get the ball into field goal range at the end. But all in all, even though it wasn't a pretty day for offensive football, it was a really good game from a fundamental football standpoint. I mean, you saw really good defensive line play on both sides of the football.
I'll give you that. But you mentioned we'll talk about the interception that Purdy had, and Nebraska once again. They had 3 fumbles in total. They lost 2 of them.
Ethan Nation.
Nebraska, yeah. I mean, it sucks, but we gotta count those.
Yep. Yep.
Nebraska technically outgained Iowa 264 to 257. It's probably one of the slimmer yardage margins for the season. Nebraska had 4.6 yards per play compared to 3.8 for Iowa. It comes down to turnovers. It comes down to, you want to talk about an anemic run game, and I'm sure we'll get there as we talk about defensive line play, but Nebraska only had 75 yards on the ground on 30 carries.
Yeah, the tailback run game was pretty much non-existent in this game. We really had to utilize the short passing game kind of as an extension of the run. I know that we hit Billy Kemp on some option routes out of the backfield, really tried to work some screens in this game. And then when you mentioned the fumbles earlier, you left out the most inexplicable fumble of the entire year. And I already see Nate nodding his head. Purdy rolling out, and the ball just squirts right out of his hand. Unforced errors.
Yeah, and it's like he's just running. There's no one around him, and he just the ball just goes out of his hands, and and then the other one was he was almost all wrapped up, and he tried the shovel pass, I think to Flakes or whatever, and they said it wasn't a forward pass, I think, because the plays in 60 they kind of move on, so you don't get to see a lot of it, but yeah, that pissed me off because I think the fumble and the one where he just just was running and it happened to fall out of his hands, which is just crazy to me. I think that was in the third quarter. And so
we had pretty good field position too.
Yeah. And so, that was one of those, I guess I forgot that Purdy, that was, you said his second start because Harburg had 8 of them.
Yeah, he had 8, went 5-3 as a starter.
Yeah. And so, I guess for some reason, as I was watching, I thought, man, I think Purdy has, more experience than just these 2 games. But I think you're right. You're right that, Harburg started all those games. So, go ahead. There's something else. I had one other thing, but
no, I was just going to say that. The one because you said Purdy fumbled twice, right? But the one that was lost was in the second quarter.
That's the shuffle pass, whatever that is. So
okay, not the bloop one.
No, I think that was in the third quarter. I think.
All right, I'll find it here.
But anyways, if you guys ever play the card game, my family calls it Scotch Bridge. Christy's family calls it Oh Hell, and it's you try to bid how many trumps you're going to get, like how many highs, whatever. Maybe you guys don't play cards. Okay. Anyways, my grandpa always told me at the end, he always said, bid one, because you have to get your exact bid. He says, bid one less than you think you should. And so I'm watching this Iowa game, and I'm like, that's what Kirk Ferentz does.
Yep.
He's like,
yep.
No, yeah, we're going to go ahead and punt it here, because we're going to do one thing less than we should because you're going to screw it up. The other team is. And I'm like, and that's kind of looking back on how when the game was live, you're just waiting. I mean, Iowa, that's like you said, it's a war of attrition. Yeah, because they're waiting for you to screw up, and so, and you kind of were just expecting something to happen at some point, and of course it did. But
I'll say this to that point, if I can add on a little bit, it's not that Iowa is a good team. They're just patient enough to wait for the other team to mess it up.
That's one of the things that stood out to me about the Nebraska-Iowa game, especially under Scott Frost, is, a lot of times Nebraska outplayed Iowa, even in the Frost era, and it came down to Ferentz doesn't go out and win it. He just waits for you to lose it. And as much as I've decried the fact that this guy punted on third down when he was the head coach at the University of Maine and, stuff like that, at some point you just got to tip the hat and be like, hey, it works for you, man. Like, you find ways to win 10 games. I mean, 10 games sounds pretty damn good right now after the drought that we've been in, regardless of how you get there. But then also you look at it and in this game, I remember thinking there were a few play calls that Iowa made that were just really smart offensively. They hit a little shovel pass on 3rd and 2, and they build play action off of some of their base runs, and they call it just as a curveball. And it kind of gets to the point where you begrudgingly have to tip the hat for what they do a little bit, just because it's not pretty, it's not effective. But you think, boy, if the shoe was on the other foot and we were winning games like that, we'd be ecstatic, So I came away from this game obviously very pissed off about losing to Iowa, but also I felt pissed off because I was like, I actually had to, tip my hat in respect on a few things that they did in this game.
Did Brian Ferenz, did he coach in the bowl game?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And the big old goose egg.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't, not that it worked out in didn't add anything to his resume.
Him and his dad are the Biff Tannins of college football.
Well, I just think about Iowa, kind of what you mentioned there. If the shoe was on the other foot, like you said, and if we were 10-2, we'd be, based on our recent track record, we'd be all for it. But
remember in 2016 when we started 7-0 and we were the worst 7-0 team in America?
Oh man!
But we didn't care. We were 7-0, baby.
What are we in that
bowl game?
9-4.
Yeah. Oh.
We took a few shellackings late in the year.
Yeah, we start actually playing somebody, and all of a sudden the true colors come out. Yeah. I think everyone was like, "Yeah, we haven't played anybody,"
But damn, those are good memories of being 7-0.
But Iowa's not really ever going to be better than 10-2.
No, that's their ceiling, and they're not going to do much this year. I mean, they'll still be a solid, fundamentally sound football team. They'll still win 8 to 10 games, but they hired Tim Lester as their offensive coordinator, and it's probably going to be much of the same with the Iowa offense because it's not going to change much when you got Kirk Ferentz at the helm.
How many more years does he have left, if you had to guess? I mean, nobody's got the crystal ball. Like, how long until he just retires?
5. I bet less than 5.
I would say it's more than 5 is probably a good number, or less, whatever. But the fact that he was willing to essentially get rid of his son and still continue to coach makes you think he's in there. He's planning on going at least more than 1 or 2, you'd think, because if you're just going if you think, I have 1 more year left, it's like, I don't need to fire my son. Maybe I should just call it quits.
Yeah. Right on the sunset together.
Yeah. So I think I read somewhere that Brian Ferentz met with Rule this past offseason, and there was talks of possibly having him as a GA, and I thought that would be a good one to have probably, even if just for 1 game. I don't know.
He coaches tight ends well. He's coached offensive linemen well, and like you said, Nate, for 1 game.
It's all. Give him $1 million just for that 1 game. I mean, probably not $1 million, but for me that'd be worth it. But I'm not the one writing the check. But
yeah, there have been some Saturdays of Thanksgiving weekends in the past 10 years where I've sat there thinking, I'd pay $1 million to beat Iowa.
Yes.
There's nothing more depressing than Eastern Nebraska the Saturday after Thanksgiving when you've lost to Iowa yet again.
The worst part is, you wake up on Saturday and all these other teams are going to be playing football, and you have to sit with the fact that you just freaking lost to Iowa. And it's like a double whammy, and I hate it so much. For
quite recently, we haven't been going to a bowl game, so it's like we lost to Iowa.
Yeah.
No bowl. The weather's usually cold and shitty, and so you're just. It's kind of like the Simon and Garfunkel, "Hello Darkness, My Old Friend."
Yes.
That's what it feels like.
Yes.
And this year's game, I mean, Ty Robinson damn near willed us to this win on his own. Blocked a field goal. I think he blocked 2 field goals, Greg?
We blocked 2. I don't know. He got one for sure. He might got the second one.
No, they only show up as a block, I think. I don't know if they show up as but I got him and I have Nash with a block.
Okay.
So I guess that's how they break it up.
But yeah, like that defensive front played their asses off in this game. And there were some times with Deacon Hill being a 260-pound quarterback that they had to bring it to get him on the ground.
On
who'd
that
have thought
second,
that?
I don't know if you guys remember on that second field goal block, the thing is the kicker caught it. We tackled him, but for a second, he fumbled it and it went forward, and they recovered it, and and they scored a touchdown. They never called it that. They called him down. But I thought, holy crap, if that somehow worked out in their favor, because this is the Iowa team that had depended upon their defense and their special teams to score all year long, and it's like, and this is what's going to beat us. Like, we block a field goal and they somehow score a touchdown off of it, right? So
I totally forgot that happened, but when it happened live, I was gripping, like this, thinking the same thing you were, just like, if this is how we lose to these guys again, this is just fucked up.
Yeah.
So Robinson had the block. Nash did have, and I feel like Nash going up against the size of the Iowa quarterback probably was like, yeah, maybe I do want to get back on the wrestling mat.
Deacon Hill is a big boy.
Yeah,
with 260 pounds.
Yep, looks like you should be playing DN somewhere.
Yeah.
Tommy Hill had a really nice game in this one. Had 3 tackles, the interception, 3 other pass breakups. Isaac Gifford, 11 total tackles. Luke Reimer had 10.
Had a great game.
Phelan Sanford, I think with hindsight, I think that I had Phelan Sanford as heavily underrated in the season. He looks like a special teams guy, but then he gets out there and he has 9 tackles. He's running all over the place like a madman. We talk about how Haas. I really want to get more input on. I know you said the D line, or Ty Robinson, tried to will the team to victory. I don't know if I want to draw the comparisons to like Ndamukong Suh against Texas in the Big 12 championship, but
it's pretty similar.
And just the fact that I think we talked about it at the time, is he decided to come back. And in watching the chasing 3 that the 5-heart Chatterfields have been telling me to do, and best friend of the show Josh has been telling me to do, is like, you need to start watching, get caught up. You see the why he's coming back, why Isaac Gifford is coming back. And I don't know if you guys have been watching Chasing 3 much at all, but basically Isaac said that he was, I think, an incoming freshman maybe when Luke was there, or he's like, I don't know how much crossover he and his brother had, but he's like, he was here for Frost's first year, and then he and a couple of those upperclassmen, they bolted, and then he's like, you saw that foundation crumble. He's like, I didn't want to turn it over to you young guys right away after 1 year, Matt Rules. He's like, so I came back. And I think that's pretty admirable. I feel like that's, kind of a similar reason for Robinson to come back. There are a lot of guys who, by all accounts, probably shouldn't be suiting up for Nebraska on Saturdays this year, but I feel like they want to be a part of that next step for the program to return to, where many of us feel like they should be.
Well, NIL has something to do with that. So, which is totally fine. My this past weekend, we were in South Dakota, and one of our group chats with another couple, she's an Alabama fan, and she sent out a text. I heard that Nebraska had this open practice and they raised money, and my wife just couldn't get over the fact that we'd be giving these kids money. I'm like, Christy, you're like behind the 8 ball by like about 5 years right now. And but that makes a lot of sense for a lot of these guys to just, if you're kind of on the fence It's like, oh, but if I say I can get $1 million or whatever, 500 grand, that sure makes it a lot easier. Thinking, okay, now if I get a lot better, then I go from a 5th round pick to a 2nd round pick, then I'm going to make all that up. And it's a lot easier to sit here in Nebraska, when you're making that money.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I know what Rule said when he was at the main podium at Big Ten football media days is one of the first things he said is, hey, we've already got 20 college graduates on our team, and by the time we get to December, we'll have 30. And that was something that someone from the press corps stood up and applauded. Like these statistics that you're reading, like the team GPA and things like that, like no other coach was talking about their academic accolades. I think a lot of that starts with the guys at the top, the Robinsons and such. I want to backtrack to the question that I started asking a few minutes ago, Haas, and that's, we talk about that defensive line, and maybe now that we've had the benefit of hindsight of a full year of Tony White and the 3-3-5, can you explain to me? I'm the first listener. I'm the biggest fan of this show. Why that 3-3-5 was able to be so successful, and can it be sustained in the second year when all these teams have more film?
I think it can. And I think the first thing why was it successful is it just differs game to game, and it's never going to look the same against specific formations. If one team runs this formation, the other and the team you're playing the next week runs it the exact same way, you might not align against that formation the same way because there's differences in personnel, there's differences in the coverage that you want to play. So really what you're looking at is the 3-3-5 is just kind of it's more of a set of anchor points than it is a defense. So you have anchor points that you got to make sure you have when you align against, different formations. You want to make sure that you're filling, the strong side B gap. You want to make sure that you have a spill defender, a force defender. And then from there, in terms of making it sustainable in year 2, what you're really looking at is Tony White really excelled on making it simple for these guys and just letting them go and play football. So it's simple for us to go out there and execute while looking very complicated and complex for the opposing offense. And I think that's one of the biggest surprising things about this defense from 2023. For so long, we've always had new coordinators come in, and we've always been like, well, it's going to take at least a year for them to get up to speed. Tony White, this defense hit the ground running, and it's because you can really tell the way they coach it. It's like they tell their defensive end. So like Jamari Butler, hey, go make a play. We'll make sure that the linebackers make you right. Meaning, whichever decision you make, whether you're going to spill something or whether you're going to play contain, the linebacker will fit off of what you decide. So really they've just turned these guys loose just to go play ball. And I think when you're able to simplify it to get your best athletes on the field, guys that we saw in their first year, like Prince Will, Cameron Lenhart, James Williams, guys like that. When you're able to simplify it to get them on the field and get them producing, it only will build upon itself in year 2, where these guys, they know what they have more confidence, they have more experience, and it's just at that point it's adding more in to confuse opposing offenses.
So I'll never compare my X and O knowledge to Haas. Never will. I think a big part of their success was also, at least from the outside looking in, the amount of hitting they did in practice, I think, and tackling. And I think even, wasn't it after one of our losses, was it to Colorado last year, where the next week or the very next day they had a scrimmage?
Oh, the Michigan game.
Was it the Michigan game?
Oh, yeah.
And all of Matt Rule's coaching traits, that probably my favorite is his willingness to essentially take the chance that kids might get hurt in practice, by actually tackling in practice. And I think that's a big deal. Hopefully you have the depth to do that. So I think that's a big reason why the defense was successful.
I think so.
And I don't know anything about X's and O's, but from what I can tell, it's a much more physical defense. Where in the past you could tell that it looks kind of like relatively like kind of patty cake almost.
I do recall, to that point, there were times in years past where we've seen a cornerback DB just try to, bump into a guy and hope that he falls down. And I feel like one of the things that Tony White and company have done is maybe teaching or reteaching or refreshing proper tackling technique. Yep. Are there, Haas, you've got a memory that stands out like no other. Are there any times that you can recall from last year where you just got so enraged because you saw a DB or a linebacker just not really even try to wrap up the guy, just kind of like give him a little shoulder, and all you did is knock him off balance, and then he ran another 15 yards?
Against Wisconsin, there were a few times.
Okay.
We couldn't stop Tanner Mordecai on the quarterback draw, and I think we brought in Malcolm Hartzog on a corner blitz. And he basically just bounced off of Tanner Mordecai. And that was more of a case of late in the year, you could tell that some of the conditioning, not that the conditioning was bad, but conditioning was an issue, meaning guys are just tired,
right.
on defense. And a lot of that came from not having an offense that could provide, you with the comfort of playing with a lead. The defense had to start pressing because the defense is what kept us in most games. But I was also going to say about what Nate's point about the hitting in practice. That's one of the things that I love the most about this staff is their willingness, to embrace the fact that there's nothing more important in football than practice. Frost probably put a little bit too much of an emphasis on the weight room. But with Rule, it's all about practice is the most important thing. And when you're constantly hitting in practice, that takes on a culture of its own on your team. It's a culture of physicality. It's a culture of nastiness. Nebraska in 1 year has become a team that I think other teams in the Big Ten are like, fuck, we don't want to play these guys. We're going to be beat up afterwards. Even if we beat these guys, we're still going to be physically beat up because it's like we're like a pack of junkyard dogs now, they're just relentless. And so I really think that it's going to be portable in year 2. And I really think from a standpoint of installing more coverages defensively and having more physical development in your edge rushers, I think you should see us really take the next step in getting off the field on third down.
I do think it's a situation, though, where you live by the contact, you die by the contact, and that's why we lost our left tackle, Teddy Prochaska or however it's pronounced, for the season. It was announced this week. Haas, I know we're not into season previews yet, but when we talk about a mostly solid returning, you were talking about returning 3+ guys on the offensive line, and then to lose one in camp. I mean, is the offensive line depth going to be there?
Yeah, I think, and I trust, I'm not saying this is a blanket statement, blind trust, trusting in the staff's developmental ability, but I do think we've seen enough through a year and a half to trust that the staff knows what they're doing in developing guys to be ready. So I'll be interested to see how guys like, Gunnar Gatula at left tackle, or if it's Turner Corcoran as a senior takes that job, how ready they are. And the other thing too, yeah, we're going to be passing a lot more, but it's not like we're going to be drop back conventional passing 60 times a game. Left tackle has to protect the blind side. We're still going to be running the ball, run and play action, RPOs, 3-step drops, stuff to, really, negate the defensive rush. So I think that this offensive line, will be just fine. I'm not saying they're the pipeline when I say just fine. I'm saying I don't think that this is like, oh my God, take your win total down from 8 down to 5, in preseason camp.
I do want to address one element. It's unfortunate that he got hurt again because, I don't know if it's a concern, but he's missed, I think, most or all of last season, now this season. But if there's any silver lining for the team, not for Teddy, but for it happened at the first week of August, not 2 days before the game, that first game, you know. So you have time to figure out who's going to be the next guy, you know, next man up, so to speak. So we didn't spend, or we haven't spent terribly much time discussing the Iowa game as we tend to do. But I mean, Nate, you just rewatched it, again, courtesy of the BTN in 60. Scale of 1 to 10, how mad were you at Thanksgiving weekend, and how mad are you after rewatching it?
Well, Thanksgiving weekend, I probably am more mad now, just because I think Thanksgiving weekend, I'm kind of the guy that until you get over the hump, I'm expecting you not to get over the hump, you know? And so until we actually beat Iowa, I mean, we beat them 2 years ago, but that was kind of, I'd say.
Beautiful.
Yes, and I was extremely happy about it. But I'd say the hump probably is getting to a bowl game, is, you know. And, of course, the team that's going to stop us from getting to a bowl game is probably the team I hate the most outside of Colorado. And so but watching it now, or just, you know, earlier tonight, we already talked about the 2 fumbles from Purdy, but Tommy Hill intercepts the ball with 31 seconds left. Yep. He returns the ball to the Iowa 40, but because of a holding penalty, it's a spot foul.
Timon Lynham.
We get the ball at our own 45, and 2 plays later, like Haas talked about, I think, you know, they dropped as a linebacker, lineman back. Guard. Okay, nose guard back and zone coverage, and Chubba Purdy didn't see him at all, right? And so, but I do remember during the game when Tommy intercepted that, I'm like, we're gonna do it. We're finally gonna do it. Like we're gonna get over that hump. And then 2 plays later, I'm like, oh, this is how they're gonna win. And then we can't tackle, and then, you know, it's like, and they just go down the field, and then it's like, I don't know, it's like the interception, our defense, maybe that's the growing up they have to do, but it is like they almost look gassed. I mean, maybe they thought, you know, like they don't got, like, not that they gave up. I'm not saying that at all, but like there is something about, like, you're giving your all, and you think your team is just going to win the game, and now something has happened. Now I have to go back out and find something within me, right, to go make a play, and they didn't do it. And Iowa walks off. Wasn't that their backup field goal kicker? Wasn't he?
Yeah, they brought in a different kicker after we blocked.
Who's never kicked before, right? I think.
Yep, never.
And of course he makes it, and you know, so. That is why I think it was the interception by Tommy Hill when I rewatched it, because I didn't quite remember how it ended. And actually, with like a minute left of the game, I thought, did they go to overtime? Because I'm like, I remember, but I'm like, you know, well, anyways, and then I saw the interception, and it was just kind of, And so I'm still upset about it.
That's how I feel, man. And when it happened live, it went from like the Tommy Hill interception is like in the end of The Sopranos, we're going to win this thing. And then when the flag got thrown, I remember turning to my dad and I said, we're going to find a way to fuck around and lose this game.
Yes.
I remember he was like, no, this is it. We're going to pull it off. And I was like, no, we're going to find a way, you know, to lose that much in field position. And then, you know, Chubba just doesn't see Herkett dropping back from the nose guard spot on a fire zone. And I mean, it's just cruel twists of fate.
Yeah, because if that penalty doesn't happen, then Rural and company, they might not feel like they have to like throw the ball right away, right? Yep. Or maybe maybe they do or not, but like they obviously thought we have to push the ball down the field right now, because there was, I think there's like 25 seconds left when they can't. Anyways, but Yeah, you get at the 40, all of a sudden you're like, okay, we need to be the last. We need to make sure either we're the last ones to kick it or time runs out, right? Type of thing.
Just take it to overtime.
Yes. And so that's just like, I know.
Well, let's play that devil's advocate just a little bit, Hoss.
I'm still not over it.
You said, last week you always, the play it safe, go, play for overtime. It didn't work out a week prior at Wisconsin. Do you think there's
we got it to overtime? It was against Maryland.
No, but we still lost in overtime against Wisconsin.
A chance.
Yeah, but I still think that there's a way that maybe, I think they try to get in position and kick the field goal for the win on your home field. I don't think they if that second interception never happens, I think they go for the points there before the end of the game.
But the whole problem is with that logic. That's all. And I'm not an advocate for playing for overtime if you have the ball in your 40 with 25 seconds left. You try to get in the field goal range. But that North win that day was brutal.
Okay,
Alfano pushed a field goal earlier in the game, just hammered it. It was a pretty nasty day with the North win. So,
okay.
Rule has been he's been a little risk averse when it comes to the wind. Within year one, he definitely showed that he wasn't willing to, take unnecessary risks. He'd rather go for it than try to kick it.
Well, kind of to Nate's point, my running theme for the 2023 season was that this defense deserved better. Yep. They deserved better from their offense.
They deserve a national championship caliber offense.
The way, the effort that was displayed, honestly the talent and the tenacity, the way they got after the ball, it was a different Nebraska black shirt defense than we had seen in some years. It's a shame it got wasted with the offense that we had, but look at the offense that we have coming back.
Yep. And
I know this will be a nice little tease for our season preview episode, which we'll do eventually. But kind of give the folks, guys, your not in any way prediction, but just what are your hopes? What do you hope to see? What do you hope Nebraska achieves in 2024, Nate?
What do I hope, or what is my hope? What is my hope based off of?
How about both?
Oh, geez.
But you asked. I was going to try to keep it simple. So I really, really want to destroy Colorado. Like my son is still up here playing Final Fantasy VII. He can hear me. But I might be willing to get rid of him if we beat Colorado. He just says he hates me, Dad. Okay. No, but I plan on taking him to that game, and I hope he feels, or I hope. And I wrote an article earlier, sorry, probably a month ago or whatever, on I think Memorial Stadium can be moody, and sometimes it's a good way. And I think and I hope that the Colorado game at 6:30 at night is going to be a game where people are angry, because there's a lot. I think there's we lost them last year. There's the Dion stuff as far as I despise how he's going about doing things, and that if we beat them, and I think we could beat them if we take care of the ball and we run the ball and we play good defense, I think we win by double digits, easy. We should, in my opinion. And if we do, that's my hope, is then I think things can go, the momentum, we could get to the Ohio State game with no losses. There are games between that and Ohio State that make me nervous, but that's my hope, is that we have a Colorado team coming in that I think
that culture, I think, based off of like the Athlon sports article that came out on Friday, or no, was it Sunday, on all the crap they have going on, and like the video of Deion Sanders saying, "Hey, you don't hit the quarterback, you don't hit the wide receivers, and you don't hit Travis Hunter. Sorry, guys, that they're gonna make millions in the NFL. We don't hit them." And I just compare that to Rule, where he'd be like, "No, of course then if you're the quarterback, you're probably gonna get hit. If you're wide receiver, guess what? There's probably gonna be somebody who might be coming up and pressing you in an actual game. So maybe you would, there's gonna be contact there. And Travis Hunter, you're a defensive player. Like, you shouldn't get blocked in practice. Like, and so that's my hope is the Colorado game. And I'm also very nervous saying that out loud, because if we lose, then, I don't think it's going to ruin the entire season, but it's just an opportunity for things to, snowball in a good way.
Yep.
I think.
Momentum.
Yes. And that is my hope. That's kind of what I'm basing my hope off of. Maybe, I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for that, but I just know that where it sits right now.
You guys have both seen Happy Gilmore, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Right at the beginning of the movie when he doesn't make the hockey team, so he goes to the batting cage and he's taking the baseballs or batting cage balls in the chest. He's like, "Gotta get tougher for
next season." Right? It's been a while.
For football, you have to take contact in practice. Your body has to develop the for lack of a better term, the calluses, and the you just got to make your body reaccustomed to getting hit. And if the first time that you're getting hit is in a live game, they're not your friend on the other team, situation, then I think it can be a very long day or a long season. Haas, your hopes for 2024?
8 to 10 wins, and I'm basing that off the law of averages. Hey, everything that can happen will happen, and we've had some really ridiculous luck. You got to look at the turnover situation. I'm not saying that we went 5-7 last year because of bad luck, but those things, statistical anomalies, eventually there's a regression. And I think that you're going to see more bounces go our way this year. And I think all in all, you're going to see us play just a lot better football.
It would be nice to see that,
I do agree with Nate, though. Like the Colorado game, if we lose that game, that's going to be the first. Like the season's not over if we lose that game.
Mm-hmm.
But that's going to be the first time that Rule's going to he's going to be called into question if we lose that game. And I'm not saying people are going to be like, "I'll fire him," but he's going to catch some heat. The honeymoon will be over at that point. And so it all starts with the Colorado game. So if you have a game where, we beat them 56-3 and we, just play really sound, good football, don't turn the ball over, I think that kind of positive momentum becomes, infectious. I think that, it becomes, a part of the team's culture that, we pride ourselves on taking care of the football. Look what happens when you take care of the football. You can juxtapose that to what happened last year in Boulder when Jeff Sims couldn't even feel the snap. So a lot of it just goes into, I trust the physics.
I forgot about that for a second. Go ahead. Sorry. I remember. I'm like, why is this so hard? Go ahead. Sorry.
I trust this staff physically and mentally preparing these guys. I do. Really what it comes down to is, can these guys have some success and let that success beget success? So like they just need that confidence. And I think beating Colorado and really, if we can, beating the brakes off of them, I'll gladly take a 1-point win against them as well. But, if we can really beat the brakes off them, I think that's going to give these guys that self-efficacy to really be like, hey, like let's take on all comers. Let's be 7-0 heading into Columbus. Why not us? And then go to Columbus and just,
what happens.
Pardon the crass phrase, but let your nuts hang out,
Did you hear the part where he said that his son was still up? And
Yeah.
He's fine. He's fine.
I think, no player's going to go to Big Ten Media Days or step up at the podium and be like, I just don't know if I see the W this week. They're all going to have to, they all put on that brave, confident face. But I do feel like there's, in this offseason, there's particular swagger around this team and a certain amount of buy-in that they have in what Matt Rule is building. I'm very excited for the season. I'm excited for bowl eligibility for the first time since the Obama administration. Borrow somebody's phrase over there. And for those of you who don't already know, which may or may not include Nate McHugh, I'm excited to be in the stadium for the Colorado game. So it's happening. Be my first ever game in Lincoln after a handful of games in Champaign and one in Pasadena. I am very excited for September 7th. As we record this, 1 month away. 1 month away from now at 10:37 p.m., it is my hope, it is my prayer, and it is my belief that we will be celebrating a Nebraska victory. So we will discuss more of it as we get closer, but that'll do it, I think, for this final episode.
12 up, 12 down.
Not as many up as we're down, but we'll flip that next year. The Corn Nation Overreaction Show will be back. Like I said, we'll have a little preseason fun, and I think Haas and I are talking. We're going to try to do that one live here as we get closer to the season, and then we'll still have our overreaction episodes every weekend after the game. So a very special thank you and expression of gratitude for our friend and guest this week, Mr. Nate McHugh. Thank you for giving up your time. I know you'd much rather be down there playing Final Fantasy with your boy as well, right?
I'd rather be playing, and I'd rather him be in bed. But that's just
it's still summer. He gets like a couple more nights of staying up late, right?
It's about a week, less than a week.
Yeah. For this guy here, my good friend Haas Reuter, we appreciate both of you men. And I'm Greg Mahachko. This is Corn Nation Overreaction Revisited. We'll catch you next time. Go Big Red. Haas?
Win the damn off season.
I thought you retired that.
Let's go with No More Buffalo by James McMurtry.
There you go. Nate, any passing closing words?
Dion, if you're coming, I can't wait to get to Lincoln.